The unbreakable rookie draft rules. That and more this week on the Footballguys Dynasty Show. And Jordan, it's amazing sometimes you can make it easy on yourself or difficult on yourself with just some simple guidelines. So why don't you kick us off with one of your unbreakable rookie draft rules?
Don't draft non-day. Don't draft day 3 guys in round 1 of rookie draft. It's just a bad mistake. That just drafting guys from day 3 of the draft, you're already looking at about a 54% hit rate or so on the first round of the draft. You look at those guys, it ends up being close to about a third of them hit. So you're already way behind the benchmark. The situation thing doesn't fly. I mean, just look at some of the guys recently that have done that. It has been Kenneth Dixon, Marcus Lattimore, Samaje Perine, Roy Halou, Devontae Booker are the guys in my database that have hit from there.
A lot of running backs. A lot of running backs is what you're describing. People push up the situational running back. We had it last year. Michael Carter going way too early, right? And where are we 12 months from then? We are Breece Hall added in a significant way.
Right. Yeah. So it's a really tough thing to sort of thread the needle on. And you look and you're drawing against guys that are about 60% or more in terms of second round running backs. Right. So already you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball when you see these guys going ahead of guys like James Cook. And I'm not even a huge James Cook fan, but I find myself having a decent share of them. I mean, this has been the most exploitable rookie draft that I can remember. Like, this is a very easy, it's very easy in terms of how to navigate this. It's not hard. And it's in a lot of rookie drafts, it's just recognizing patterns. This is one of the ones you just can't do. So no matter what you're tempted to do, you're already looking at it. If you look at day 3, if you look at 4th round guys, for example, and you compare them to 3rd round guys, it's about 40% of 3rd round rookie running backs hit, a little bit more than that. And it's 20% that hit for round 4, right? So you're already drawing half the number, and it's just you're trying to hit an inside straight draw when you should be really drafting for a lot of different options, right? If you're thinking about poker, instead of trying to thread an inside straight draw, you want to be drawing open-ended flush draws, right? Or open-ended straight flush draws, right? You want to have a lot of options, and this just isn't this is a very easy class if you're just willing to be humble and move down, which, by the way, has been very lucrative. I know that people have been on Twitter saying that it's not a trade down class. You can't do that in this class. That is 100% not true in my experience. I've been doing it with some good success, and it's the same thing, Jed. It's every year that people will rag about the class, and then you get into the class and they're like, oh, look at this person's going to solve my issues. Like, this day 3 running back is going to solve my issues. It's the same thing. It has never changed, and I doubt it ever will. People are just not going to learn their lesson, except for people listening to our show.
Yeah, the thing that got me was I thought for sure Isaiah Spiller going to day 3 was going to push him down. Like, I thought I would be able to pick up a lot of 210, 303 shares of Isaiah Spiller. Zero. I'm through about 20 drafts in 7-8 days and zero. I'm over on Isaiah Spiller, and that's because he's going early second. I mean, people are pushing him up. And I also think that, so the move down, and then you say, well, he's blocked by Austin Eckler, but yet people think he's going to get a lot of early touches. He may get early touches. He's still an injury away guy. And you're saying he's the first one. He's basically the first one you have to take, the highest price one, when there's guys that could be or clarified and look like they're an injury away later in the round. Like, it befuddles me that, Isaiah Spiller isn't a first rounder, but like you said, pushing up the day 3 running back specifically. Every once in a while we get a wide receiver, but a lot of times it's those running backs. Dameon Pierce is getting the love. He's getting the love this year. I've seen him drafted in the late first, a lot of times in the top 15 or 16. Man, that is a big matzo ball out there, because I mean, Pierce is a guy that did not produce a whole lot in college. Frankly, I thought he was going to, he's going to be this big dynamo, this big size speed guy. Nope, didn't do that either. but he lands in Houston. And I thought people were ragging on Houston being one of the worst offenses in the league because Brandon Cooks gets discounted. And then you get Rex Burkhead, no one giving him any love or credence. Marlon Mack goes there. People have him still on the waiver wires in some leagues, but yet Dameon Pierce is going to be the guy that solves everyone's problems. It's really weird and backwards that Burkhead, no one cares. Marlon Mack, no one cares. But Dameon Pierce, round 4, is going to come in and change that depth chart. He's the glaring one to me that he seems to be going earlier and earlier.
Yeah. And it's funny. I saw Rex Burkhead cut today and I was like, if they had to play a game tomorrow, he's their starting running back. I'm just like, I mean, and it's funny, forever, you and I were like, we're not huge fans of Marlon Mack. And now all of a sudden, like the entire market just wants to totally displace Marlon Mack. Again, I'm not
a roster spot.
Right. I'm not a huge fan of his, but like you can get him basically at free and take the exact same bet.
He's the most productive guy on that whole depth chart, and it's not particularly close.
Right.
And Burkhead's number 2. So let's just put this into tiers. Right. It's Marlon Mack, tier, Rex Burkhead, tier, everyone else, aka Dameon Pierce.
Yeah.
And yet everyone has it the opposite. Like right now, you could probably get 2 shares of Marlon Mack and 1 share of Rex Burkhead for the price of the probabilities are all off in terms of going backwards. So I'm going to go with 1, which is, and I see this as something that I struggled with. I'm doing better. I would call myself a recovering addict of the Jeff Janis theory here, which is depending on the depth of your league. This is going to shift. The line of import is going to move here, but you got to view late rookie picks. That could be round 3, could be round 4, could be round 2 in FFPC, but you've got to view late rookie picks as glorified waiver wire selections. Mm-hmm. And the reason for this is they're your final roster spots. I mean, unless you're horrific. I've got maybe one team, Orphan, I took over where it's like, I got to fill some spots here. So I'm kind of looking forward to that eventually by week 1 with waiver runs and things like that. But waiver selections are going to be what press and pressurize those spots that you're drafting right now at 305, 310, 406. And I see so many people take players or profiles that have almost a 0% chance, if they're monitoring the waiver wire with their eyes open for the best probability plays, that they are likely to cut these players by week 1 or in August or by October. Like the point is, what's the point of making the pick? Like if you're going to be patient, so know your mindset, know what kind of dynasty GM you are. And if you're going to be super patient and draft quote unquote your guys, and it's 35, 40 man rosters, so be it. That's a different conversation. But most dynasty leagues, 22 to 28 man rosters, and there's going to be pressure right away. There's going to be shiny objects in August and September. And really, you hold in some wide receiver you drafted that's wide receiver 4 on their depth chart 3 months ago, you just burn the pick. And then here's the other thing. If you don't cut the player, you're kind of screwed either way. Either you use I can't cut the guy I drafted in the 3rd round a few months ago. And so you're missing on opportunities for years, AKA Chad a few years ago with Jeff Janis for 3 years or whatever it was. Or you cut the player and you're like, well, what was the point of the pick then? What was the point? Because I just spent the pick and now I cut them for $1 waiver bid, pickup here in August, September.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've broken the rule a little bit this year, and selected someone that you have frowned upon me doing. I
get the pitch. I get your pitch. I can see the side, but trust me, we see plenty of picks where we just kind of roll our eyes. We're like, wow, that's weird. Just we could not be co-owners ever. Like you just you sit there and you're like, these do not align. I mean, there's so many wide receivers that are drafted in that range, and frankly, there's some running backs where it's tough to tell the story. And if you get the inside straight, you get the right injury combo, it could work out. But that is bad process equal a good and outlier result, more so than, I know what I'm doing. Smartest guy in the room here. Mm-hmm. So what I always tell people, if you're going to be itchy with that spot, just keep trading your pick. Just keep trading those picks away. 307, you get on the clock, you're like, let me package that with, let me try to get the worst team's 3rd next year. Let me just kick the can. If it turns out to be 310 next year, who gives a care? It's the same thing. But you just keep putting that card back in your wallet and saying, maybe I'll spend it next year. Maybe you will have a target player in the third next year at that point, or maybe you have more open roster spots, or maybe then it turns into 303 and you trade it for a future second or a backup running back you like. I just like, people think that they just have to stick and pick and you have to draft these low probabilities guys. I mean, think proactively. Like, I throw in thirds and fourths and, get these veteran profiles I like, or backup running backs, or that might be what moves you up because you're getting a little antsy from 210 to 207 to quote unquote get your guy. Use it that way. Just go 2 for 1 like earlier in the draft and be like, maybe he probably makes it, but I want to make sure, and just start at 207. Oh, on the clock, let me try to trade up. 208, let me try to trade up from 211. Like, you just have that process. Eventually you'll quote unquote dump the pick. And you will have gotten your guy, and you will have at least been productive with that.
Yeah, and it's I view those back of the roster spots. Like, I've taken over a handful of orphans this year in terms of just looking for teams that I think I can remake a little bit. And honestly, like, I have done enough trading of like 203 to 206 and 306, and then I actually moved back again, and I got a couple of future picks and a move back again off of that, as well as a later pick. And so all of a sudden I'm sort of accumulating picks, and I'm not necessarily looking for like long-term holds. I'm trying to change my roster construction, right? So I'm trying to move from depth wide receiver to depth running back. And that can even be, hey, I'm going to take once waivers open, I'm going to cut some of these guys and start adding waiver spots for backup running backs. But listen, Hassan Haskins has a wide open shot to be running back too. Like, he has an open competition for that job. Like, that is an interesting spot. You look at some of these other guys that might not have that, right? Where they're not competing for anything valuable, and you're like, but you look at some of these other guys like Haskins, for example, I think is a good one that has that open opportunity. And I keep coming back to, hey, some of these tight ends are actually interesting-ish, but again, do you want to, how long do you want to hold them for?
It's a road to nowhere,
right? Like, Dulcich.
What you've said, what you've said is, even if they hit, what does that mean? "Quote unquote," tight end 10. Even if they are the outlandish historical outlier in the first year or 2 years of their. Well, here's the other thing: what do they have to do in year one for you to hold them all the way through the offseason?
Right.
I mean, these are. You kind of ask yourself before you make the pick. And it's interesting because I think when you're kind of doing some right things, and it doesn't mean you can't be successful in your dynasty leagues, but you can, a lot of ways you look back at whether it's 1 year, 5 years, whatever, and you're like, I got, kind of got lucky because I did a lot of things wrong. And I think you realize all these de-optimized scenarios that you do. And then if you correct one of them, it like really changes the arc for all of your teams. You're like, oh, I want to change this in more of my teams, not just this one that I experimentally started to do it. And yeah, the tight end, where you look at when the breakouts occur and it's just really very slow, and then you say the payoff is not in that elite tier that really moved the needle. It's like, what are we doing? Like a Trey McBride selection in one tight end. What are we doing right now? Like that's not just, it's a slow moving position. He's behind Zach Ertz. Reminder, he set the record, the season record for catches, not a few years ago. And he's on like a multi-year looking contract for Arizona. So this could be a Martellus Bennett in Dallas type situation. Just be careful. And this is independent of it. Is he good? We're trying to answer the question, is he good, while getting limited playing time, probably behind Zach Ertz with a quarterback you may not be totally sold on. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on there that is like, taking him in the second round or early third can be pretty horrific when you look back in a year and a half.
Yeah, even in formats where you're playing 2 PPR, right? It's even tough there, just because.
Well, he's going to go up. The problem is he's going to go up, right? He's going to go to early second probably, and then he goes into the first round when it's 2 tight end. Like, it gets extreme. The stakes go way up. The last one I'll say in passing, which is just general pedigree profiling of like, don't overlook the first round wide receivers. I've seen that happen with day 3 running backs, for example, in that late first, early second. I've seen it with late day 2 wide receivers and like, let's pass on round 1 guys. independent of, your thoughts and feelings about Jahan Dotson, looking straight at you, if you have concerns about him or Carson Wentz or Washington or whatever, you shouldn't have a lot of concerns when you're paying like 202 prices. So
Right.
that's just like, you just take it, just take it. And then day 2 running backs. I mean, we've got plenty of examples this year of guys that are falling behind really risky day 2 wide receiver profiles and day 3 running backs. I mean, I never would have guessed that Spiller and Zamir White are both going ahead of multiple day 2 running backs. Yeah. Like, I never would have guessed that would be the reality. Like, it makes it, like you said, it's just at some time player selection is just too easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Tyrion Davis Price is going to be, I got him at 301 right now in real draft position. So he's going to be one of the rare, he's right on the line of being one of the rare day 2 running backs.
What was Madison?
Have 3. He was, I think he was just outside of it. I can check.
I always heard stories that a lot of people regularly got Madison in round 3, but I was always taking him in round 2. I'm sure the same thing with James Conner. Like, he went in round 3, enough to have people remember, oh, I got him in the 3rd round, stuff like that. But it just depends how aggressive you are, or if he literally falls to you at various points. But
start 1 leagues, I had Madison at 23.7, so he just missed it.
Yeah.
He just missed.
That's a completely block guy. Like, that's Madison going to a in his prime Dalvin Cook led depth chart there in Minnesota.
Yeah.
This Tyrion Davis Price thing, like, it's interesting because I think you're getting the Trey Sermon discount. I mean, like, how much do you think is that factoring in? The Trey Sermon,
think of what we did last year in terms of those guys.
No, I know. Well, now we're getting like a round and a half less,
right?
Or 2 rounds, something like that. But knee surgery for Elijah Mitchell, not really a lot of allegiance there. Trey Sermon, is he in the doghouse? Is he in the outhouse? Is he in the birdhouse? Like, we don't know where he is.
Right.
You got the Shanahanigans, but really, something's got to give. I mean, it's weird. Elijah Mitchell doesn't have a lot of market appeal. Sermon definitely doesn't. Mm-hmm. Davis Price doesn't. Right. And then who's left? I mean, you've got Jeff Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Is that it? That's it. There's something in there. That's the answer. They're all pretty affordable. I think people are just kind of done. I think their patience level is 0.5 on a 1 to 10 scale. And so, again, I mean, no one was talking about. I think the other factor too is, Jordan, that Davis Price was really the guy no one was talking about him. Like, I was intrigued by the profile, but expected draft position, all we saw was like mid-day 3 to UDFA.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's day 2 and people are like, who's this guy?
Right.
Who's this guy crashing the party? Why couldn't that have been Dameon Pierce? God, like, I'd be going like 108. if it was round 3, Dameon Pierce.
Right.
We'd be in for a show there.
Yeah, so I looked it up. I have, going back to 2008, I have 10 guys that were round 3 running backs that were or basically day 2, but they're all round 3 running backs. One of them is Dree Archer, so you have to figure out how to count that. The other one's Jacob Hester, actually, so that's a fullback.
Yeah.
So then you actually look, it's more like 8. It's more really 8 legitimate.
Is it Matt Jones? Matt Jones has got to be one.
James Conner, Matt Jones, Charles Sims, McKinnon, Alex Green from Green Bay, Bernard Pierce, Stephen Ridley, and Niall Davis. So if you look at
all those guys returned, maybe not Niall. I can't remember Niall Davis's career arc, but all the other guys returned.
A first-round rookie pick. Yeah.
Okay, but pretty much all of them at a point were profitable, and to a decent amount. Bernard Pierce was like right in there in a committee type role, and injury away, and was he going to take over? Like, I remember that. Like, he was an underrated Ravens guy at that point in time.
Totally. Connor hit in year 2. So did Charles Sims. And then so did Ridley as well. Yeah. And then you look at it, Matt Jones was up.
Well, he was worth the first when he had one big game. He had like one 100-yard game, and all of a sudden that moment it was like, this is the window. This is the moment.
Yeah. And then he entered it was the 2016 season he entered, and that was the Alfred Morris year, right? Pretty sure that was the year that Alfred Morris became a thing. And basically took his job. And then you look, Charles Sims, he hit. I mean, McKinnon was worth first, and then he's actually so 4 of those guys have hit. 3 of them actually hit in year 2. So that's
McKinnon. And McKinnon was. Are you going to argue that he was probably the weakest one in terms of like what actually happened with him?
Well, I think he's better than Green and Pierce, right? I mean, he drew a
Alex
first
Green.
too.
Alex Green was all about I remember that was landing
Yeah.
with the Packers, and he was going to be
Right.
the pass catcher, like coming from Hawaii, with big back that can catch, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So when you look at these guys, the track record on them is well
Profitable.
beating the ADP,
Yeah.
right? And so, you push that late third or that late second, early third round, and in super flex drafts, it probably pushes Davis Price into the third round pretty comfortably. My database is just start 1, just because that's what we have some sample on. And you look at it. I mean, you just set it and forget it at that, and just worry about what happens later on, right?
Well, because also a
that's a
day two
really
running
easy
back,
decision.
day two running back, you're going to have some allegiance. You're going to have some patience. Like this is talking about the other rule I said, which is, thinking of them when you get to a certain point in your draft as glorified waiver selections. An incoming rookie day two running back is not on the same timetable or pressurization as a day 3 wide receiver or someone that's super situational, because you're going to hold that player into year 2 for sure. Like they should be above that line in the sand for your roster spots. So I think that's a key delineation here, especially when it's late second, third round, and those types of profiles are available to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 103 of the Footballguys Dynasty Show. Want to remind you about the official landing page for all show links and info. We're about 3 weeks away here from us spreading our wings, venturing out of the Audible nest. So you want to go over to join.footballguys.com/dynasty show. You're going to get all of our Twitter information. You're going to get the landing page, whatever podcasting platform and app you use. You're going to be able to find us. You can also just search Footballguys Dynasty Show. It's here in the chat for, if you're watching it on YouTube as well. So all of those things, again, we count down. We've been talking about it for a couple of months, but here we go out of the nest. And obviously, once we get there, once you are finding us elsewhere, then it's going to be important to rate and review us and all those good things, so that we can keep growing. We can keep seeing opportunities to do what we love, share our story, share our time and our talents here about building dynasty teams together. Jordan, myself, and the budding and growing dominant dynasty GMs out there in the audience. All right, so let's go to some dynasty trades. Picked plenty that are rookie draft centric. We got some rookies involved as well. Let's start out with one of our favorites out there in the marketplace. I tried to send a few offers out there. I acquired 0 shares through the rookie draft trading, but doesn't mean I didn't try, which is Ezekiel Elliott. So we got a 16-team IDP. It adds a little juice to the rookie picks there. They didn't specify. I think it's one quarterback, and it is Ezekiel Elliott for a 23 first and third.
I'm surprised it takes this much to get Zeke. That was my assumption, especially with the IDP. I think you could probably do it in other ways in terms of getting that. Can you pay less for a guy like James Conner? Can you pay less for a guy like Fournette? That I would
it's interesting that Conner, I've acquired him for cheaper than what the asking price on Zeke is, when you would think Conner would be rising or stabilized, and a lot of people are down on Zeke. Interesting.
Right. Yeah, and I have a general rule, which is don't trade future first for anything if you're going to trade a future first, that has to include a top 30 guy. And I don't think Zeke is that at this point. So I'd be firmly on the pick side of that equation.
Yeah. And that said, I do think Zeke I'm fairly immobile on him. If I have him, I'm rolling him. I'm contending with him. I'm letting the wheels fall off as his price erodes. But if I don't have him, I think, paying a first to get him, that's typically not my running draft. My running back, if I am going to bring somebody in, I'm doing it differently or cheaper or pivoting or all this other types of stuff than just like, I give you rookie capital, you give me Ezekiel Elliott type profile. So just wanted to clarify that I do feel like there's not really a buy or sell recommendation on him per se coming out of here. All right, we've got 10-team Superflex, little tight end premium, and we've got Joe Burrow, Broadway Joe, on the move for A.J. Brown, Justin Fields, and Cole Kmet. So does this change your, just 10-team Superflex, does that change your calculus on quarterback a little bit?
A little bit, because you get not quite the premium if it's 12 or 14, something like that. As you go up in teams, it gets more, they get there's more demand, so you get that aspect of it. Man, I don't necessarily love Komet in this, but I think, and again, I don't love Fields either. But I think that this is a good. I wouldn't construct it like this, but this would be the pivot I would do off of Burrow. Can you go from a guy like Fields? Can you make that? Is that a Stafford type? Is that and is that
Are you close to Aaron Rodgers? Yeah.
Right. And you start thinking about, I would go that route in terms of a pivot, because if you look, Stafford and Fields are going within a handful of picks of each other in startups over the past month. You start looking at that. Rodgers is going cheaper, right? So that'd be something that I would potentially I would think about it that way. That's sort of the quarterback profile that I would rather have. It would be a guy that's done it at least once, if not multiple times. So that would be the bet that I would make. But again, you're getting back a guy like AJ Brown. I like that. Komet, again, we sort of talk about the difference between tight end 8 and 25. There's not a ton of difference in there. You're really picking things, and Komet doesn't really strike as a super high end, even if his best season's tight end 7.
And 10 team, you got to get the ceiling. I mean, it becomes
Correct.
even more and more important to have the ceiling as opposed to a 16 teamer or something like that, where floor is a little more of a factor. I'll tell you, I don't like this. I'm not even the biggest Burrow fan, but I think there's a chance in a couple of years, Komet is like shoulder shrug, Fields is shoulder shrug, and you really traded, it's still a premium position at quarterback. And even though I might be below the market on Burrow, I think getting AJ Brown, where we have some questions about going over to Philadelphia, what's their quarterback situation? And obviously still firmly in his prime. He's got Devonta Smith there that is better than they had in the skeleton of Julio Jones and some other stuff going on there in Tennessee. So, and Dallas Goedert as well. So I just think, I don't know. I think this is one where you went 1 for 3. You gave up the best asset in the deal for the format. And if you can pivot off of those pieces, sure. But we talk about that a lot to try to make the deal what we would do. Yeah. But it can be difficult post trade to just pivot from Fields, pivot from Brown, or whatever you're thinking. I mean, I would honestly, even though it's 10 team, I would want just different things or better is what I would say.
Yeah. And just because I would at a cost like this, I would be interested in selling Burrow, but that doesn't mean I have to sell him for this deal. Right? That would be the way that I would think about it. Again, if I bought Burrow at this cost, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm starting him week 1. It might be an opportunity to pivot from there. Again, I don't like making deals like that, but
I am fine with the quote unquote downgrade quarterback and then get a cornerstone wide receiver. I'm fine with that concept. Right. And again, if you are, I do think the dabbling and arbitraging the quarterback market is a tried and true one, especially in premium formats. If you can just, move around and peruse the board there.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a 10 team super flex, rookie picks only. So I wanted to create a scenario. I didn't see what the picks actually were here, but 102 for 104 and 204. So both of us have seen a lot rookie draft wise. We've moved around the boards ourselves. So assuming in this instance that Breece Hall is gone, you're sitting at 102. Is this the type of move you would look to do?
Yeah. I mean, this is what are you trying to accomplish? And I think I have seen enough of these drafts where a guy like Walker or a guy like London actually falls to 4, which has been surprising to me. It felt pre-draft that was almost preordained.
1, 2, 3, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but there's been people that have taken Pickett. There's been people that have taken. I've actually seen a lot of Treylon Burks crash that. Jamison Williams has crashed that.
Garrett Wilson a few times. Yeah.
Yes, Malik Willis inexplicably. Kenny Pickett has actually crashed the top 3 in a couple of spots that I've seen. So as you sort of look at that number 4, I thought that was going to be a bad position to be in. But I would want to know what's there if I was going to, well, I guess in this case you'd be trading back. If I was going to trade up to that spot, I'd want to know in advance. This one, I don't know. I would probably think about it in terms of what is this person trading up for? Right? Is there a clear situation where is this a potential quarterback spot? Right? Is there a record? And I actually did this I'm a total degenerate, and I'll just go into a quick story about what I did. Someone offered me, they wanted to move up one spot, and they said, here's a list of guys. And one of the guys was Jacoby Brissett. And I said, what are the odds? And I knew exactly what I was going to take. I think it was Brian Robinson. And I said, okay, what are the odds that he's actually going to take Brian Robinson here? And so I went back and I looked at like 3 years worth of history, and he hadn't drafted a rookie running back in the first 3 rounds of any draft in the last 3 years. And I said, I think I had Watson. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. And of course he went wide receiver. So there's little stuff like that you can look at and try and improve your odds a little bit on. So I would think about all those things before I'm making this. And then, I don't know. I think Walker is a step up, and I've actually made the move. But when you look at it, there's basically a 50-50 shot. So I have in the tracker, I've got 359 drafts. 28% of the time Walker makes it to 4. 27% of the time London makes it to 4. So you're basically flipping a coin.
So you got 50, you get 50+%. Yeah.
Yeah. 55%.
And if either of those outcomes hit at 4, I think you really like it. Yeah. I will say, if you don't get that scenario, here's the thing I was going to focus on. What I like is a lot of times in these trades, like you'll hit something, and like as you're talking, I'm going to focus on the other thing. And just 204 has the potential to be one of the few, like, are you getting great value right there at 204? A lot of times that's post Jahan Dotson. It could be in this zone of Isaiah Spiller. You're getting some of those guys like Damian Pierce or others, or I've actually seen Alec Pierce. I don't know if it's just today, but it seems like he's going earlier and earlier, and sometimes in that early round 2 spot. And so again, a lot of times the guy that I would take is going to be there 3, 4, 5 spots later from 204. So that's the one scenario of 204. It might be a trade down scenario after this deal. So picking that up and losing the options that you for sure have at 2, you may have at 4. That's the one thing I would point out. Obviously, 204 is an asset. You could trade that for a veteran. You can move back. You can do a lot of things. But just 204 in itself might be kind of between zones where you miss on Dotson by a couple picks or 3 picks, and then you're still 2-3 picks ahead of Brian Robinson or somebody else.
Right. I've had a little success moving down. I haven't done a ton of wanting to move down in that range, but I moved down mid-second. I got a future second, a third. I moved
Rashad White. Actually, I should give respect. Rashad White is typically the guy that goes up in that early or second, those right after Dotson by a couple picks maybe. So yeah, I should give him credo, because that would probably be, if I stick and pick at 204, that'd probably be who I pick. But
I'm with you there, because I think he's go ahead.
I will say at 4 that we might have a little differing here. If you get squeezed, and probably the move is to trade down and just, move back in the first round somewhere. But at 4, let's face it, Treylon Burks at 4 is not a bad scenario when you're talking about ceiling. You're talking about the potential, like looking at a lot of scenarios for him. If he hits, it's probably going to be pretty big. So, I mean, obviously the cost at 104 is not ideal. You'd love to get the same bang for your buck a little later. Like Jameson Williams, sometimes you can get him at 6, 7, 8, something like that. But again, Treylon Burks is another worst case scenario. Like if you put all 3 of those guys together between Walker and London, who have better odds, and that floor is raised in terms of the probability of just being a bust. But Burks, again, that has a pretty big ceiling when you talk about 104, 105, 106 scenarios. All right, we got one more here, FFPC. So we're going to shrink wrap everything roster size wise. We got Saquon Barkley traded for Jameson Williams, Gabe Davis, and Zamir White.
What are you doing? Why are you doing this?
Trying to collect shares of Saquon Barkley, because I think he could turn it around. Well, I'm just kidding. Kidding.
That's a good direction to go. But
the opposite side,
3 for 1 in FFPC, and you're going to receivers as well. I mean,
2 best guys in the deal are wide receivers.
Yeah, and it's a day 3 running back. Again, I can like Zamir White, but I mean, you're going to be kicking yourself in October, right? When you don't have a guy Barkley's to start.
Because even if you want to say that he didn't have a great year, but he's going to collect touches. Yeah. Like he's going to be in your lineup. You can start up to 4 running backs in that format. He's going to be in your lineup.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, give me and this is not Barkley completely falling on his face and eroding in front of our eyes into a speck of dust. What is the 2022 way that the other side wins the deal?
The 2022 way the other guys wins the deal.
Because Jameson Williams might not play to start the year.
Right.
Big question mark there. I guess it'd be Gabe Davis pretends like it's the postseason.
Gabe Davis is the top 20 wide receiver, and something happens to Josh Jacobs.
But even that, like, what's this assumption that Zamir White is handcuffed?
And Barkley disappoints.
No, I know. But why is Kenyon Drake not exist anymore?
Like, I mean, I think it's a fair question, right? He didn't really exist last year, and he's not on scholarship anymore, right?
So I got it. And Peyton Barber, they started him in a clarified start. I remember that. Right. But still, Zamir White, it's a pretty big projection that he's going to be healthy. I mean, he was a relative non-producer in college. We'll see. But I don't even know if Gabe Davis finishing at wide receiver 20 makes this a square deal. We'll see.
Yeah.
But like you said, here also you're going +2 at wide receiver. We're talking about roster composition. I mean, this could be like you already had 5 wide receivers. Now you're going 7.
Brutal. Chris chimes in the chat. He says, we're now in our weekly Gabe Davis trade talk segment. I didn't realize that was a thing for us. I gotta go back.
He's probably counting. It's been 3-4 weeks in a row. Can I just tell you, like the places I've had or have Gabe Davis, I have not experienced the liquidity of the trade market that people. Let's rewind. What was it? 15 months to the January after 2020 season, and it was like, oh, he's like an early second. I tried for weeks, no chance, no dice, and this offseason it perked up again. No dice, no chance. I don't know where these people are finding these deals. This is one of those you look around, you're like, everybody else, every other person is getting these great deals. They're getting these step ups. Oh, I traded Gabe Davis plus for, Stephon Diggs or Amari Cooper. Or like I went straight across. I got Brandon Cooks plus. Like you're doing all this like great stuff. And it's like, no, not in my league. Like someone wants to give a third and then some marginal running back.
Everyone's reading from the same script on Gabe Davis and all my leagues.
I guess it's a polarizing marketplace there. Yeah. Do want to remind you about the daily email update by Joe Bryant. All the information you need, and this is pivotal times coming out of rookie camp. We're going to get a lot of news coming out, and we're going to get to the preseason training camp. Everything you need. So you want to go to the right side of the footballguys.com homepage, click the button, and join because more than 500,000 followers to that daily email update from Joe Bryant, and your league mates are following. So you don't want to be behind in the news and analysis. So to not become your parents, this is a big one. I feel like I'm 5 years away from this, Jordan. We are going to apply medical ointments and creams at home, not in public. You just got stuff in your pocket. It's in the missus' purse. I mean, you just... all of a sudden you got something for the elbow, you got something for the arthritis, something for the lumbago, the knee, hopefully not hemorrhoids. I mean, you got so many, sorry, Joe, you got so many things. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. You got sensitive gums. You've got something for, got the antacids. You've got everything. Just there's an ointment, a cream, and a tablet for everything. Don't be that guy. No one wants to know.
No,
talking to everybody about it. All right, we've got 3 things from the Shark Pool, quotes from the Football Guys Dynasty Forum this week. I am anti-veto unless collusion is involved.
Veto's all right. I mean, I didn't mind him as a character. I am anti-veto as well. I'm anti.
Are you in any leagues that actually vote on trades and things like that? Like any sort of public court?
No. If there's a complaint. And I've actually seen this. There was an issue on a platform this week where some people did some digging, and there was actually a guy trading with himself. So he would take over multiple orphans, and I saw that. Right,
Stacking.
Unless you're in a situation like that, which
that's collusion. That's actually. I mean, that's collusion within one person, not even 2 people. So that's the easiest collusion. It's just I have 2 teams.
Right.
How do you? That's actually would take a skill though to make it look believable and not. You can't completely stack one team and leave one for dead. I mean, you gotta, make it look legit. It's like point shaving. You gotta make it look good.
Yeah. But if you see that there's a pattern over and over again, right? If you're playing in enough leagues where it's like I've played in a bunch of leagues where the person's name is the same. When you start seeing the same thing over and over and over again, like
he was in 100-something leagues, right?
Right.
I mean,
right. And he's probably it's like that's the type of stuff that would get you like in a desert in Vegas, and like the 70s.
The
Like
casinos.
yes. Yeah. That was like the
Casinos put
guy
a
they
bag
found
over
in
your head.
a garbage can in Lake Mead this week that's been dead for like 40 years. Like that type of stuff in like the fantasy realm. Like that's not good. So don't do that, and pay attention. Like if that stuff's happening, like that would be the stuff. But other than that type of stuff, I mean, there's stupid stuff that happens. Right? Just let people
Guess what?
act,
Guess
right?
what? It may not be at the moment. See, here's the interesting thing. If you review and quote unquote grade trades, there can be ones that look egregious at the time of doing them, but there's plenty that fast forward a few months, a year, and they look egregious. So I would one argument I would make is if they look egregious in the moment or they look egregious in 6 months, what's the difference? If we get into October and they look at all these trades from the offseason look egregious, I mean, how will we shut our pie holes when they actually happen? Because even the ones that look fair slant tremendously once we get into playing new games, new action, new teams, all that kind of stuff in a new year. Actually, we had one from what was it? Henry in the chat says a horrible year to get the 102 in drafts, and he said he had it in both of his FFPC leagues. I don't think so. I think we're getting a top 45 running back that. Hey, it's a good pedigree. It's a good profile. It may not be ideal. Drake, I still will argue Drake London, TBD on what the running backs look like. But if you just look at a wide receiver profile, he's got a really good pitch to be a 101 caliber wide receiver. Whether or not you want to take that at 101 is a different conversation. But top 10 pick, elite profile. It's not like he's a Tavon Austin, 175 pounds sort of thing. Like, He's got a really good argument. And the fact that you can get him at 103, 104, we just talked about that a segment ago. So I would just say that. All right. I've seen owners who enjoy fantasy the most when they get players from their favorite NFL team, even when it lessens the quality of their own fantasy team. So what do you think about the blending of fandom, player fandom, and I mean, fantasy is in the title. So I know at some point, along the way, part of this was about let's create a fantasy team. Like, oh, we're going to have Aaron Rodgers playing with Saquon Barkley, and he's going to be throwing passes to T. Higgins, and like you're creating scenarios of melding a lot of your favorite players on teams.
Yeah, I don't play that way usually. I'm actually I have an anti-Buffalo bias when it comes to players. I still can't get on board with Josh Allen just being quite as good as he is, just because I'm nervous that once I get there, then he'll just go away, right? That's my nerves. But I mean, so that's not how I play. But listen, I mean, have fun, right? It's your time, it's your energy, and if I can identify someone in my leagues doing this, I'm going to trade their players to them at a premium price. Right? That's the way to play.
Is there any player that slants it even 5% of like, I like this player, so you boost them just a little bit in how much you have them or the valuation of them, whether it's a rookie, a veteran, whatever it is? I mean, is there any slant at all for a player? As Jordan looks at me deadpan with dead eyes, he's like, I don't know what you're saying.
No, I mean, is there like a player that I really like that would move the needle? I mean, not
a little bit.
I mean, I've grown very fond of Alexander Madison, right? Like I've grown fond of our guys, but it's been more of cost and profile.
You mentioned Alexander Madison.
Yeah.
Deep cut. For most people, they're like, who?
Right.
Like,
yeah, but I've grown like it's usually from a rooting for them because we get them at the right price for the profile more than it is like, hey, I really.
So it sounds like it's near deep or very affordable backup running backs.
Right.
Would be in that vein. Latavius Murray, right? For years, right? Like, wasn't he the guy ignored? Yes. We might get Mark Ingram. Like Mark Ingram for me this year might be one of those guys. Yep. Still hanging around. Everyone wants who's the undrafted free agent they brought in to the big quote unquote big contract. Oh, Abram Smith.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, Abram Smith for days. Okay.
Yeah. Good luck making the team.
Meaningful money.
Tony Jones as well.
Yeah. Right.
By the way,
he got to pass Tony. Yeah.
All
right. We got one more here. I've owned Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Justin Herbert, and Kyler Murray in multiple leagues for years, and Josh Allen in one league since he came into the NFL. Out of all of those quarterbacks, the best offer I've ever received was 110 this year for Justin Herbert. I just don't see people ever giving up that kind of stuff for a quarterback in 1 QB leagues.
The demand's low, even when they're really good. You have if you have quarterback 10, it doesn't feel like that big of a difference.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
Right. It just doesn't feel
Well,
like
you
that
really
big
have
of a
like one of those guys, right? I think we've had this discussion. Like, what is a requisite amount where you say there's big upside with guys like Allen, or you can name 4 or 5 guys that could have decent percentage chance to finish as QB1. They have the profile to finish as such, but it seems like there's a cap ceiling of like maybe a mid first evaluation if you are a strong contender and quarterback is your weak spot. But you sit there and you're like, well, I got Dak Prescott. Well, you can go into that next bucket. I mean, that still means, like, if you have a league where you have Stafford or Aaron Rodgers, you're already down to like 7, 8, 9 guys. So how many double up teams and rosters are there to say that, well, I'm sitting there and I'm rocking Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins, and I'm willing to pay a mid first for one of those guys, like a true cyborg assassin, because I think that moves the needle. I don't know about you, Jordan. I sit there in my league and I've got Derek Carr, and I'm like, I kind of like the way this offseason's going. I think we could get back to some of those MVP days. So why would you move that mid first for one of those guys when you're like, I'm rocking this committee? Maybe I've got Stafford or Carr or someone like that with, I just like what I have. So it's a really interesting non-market, if you will.
Yeah, and you got to get into, if you have this record of picking quarterbacks, you got to get into superflex leagues. I mean, playing more superflex, playing more 2 QBs. That it opens it up, right? It really opens up a whole new aspect of playing in Dynasty, because it makes a new, we're in a 2 tight end league, and you're texting me today and we're talking about, the importance of getting James Mitchell, right?
Deep
in like
cut.
round 5, right? like again, you just like, who the heck is James Mitchell, right? But that it's exposing you to a whole bunch of other players, and there's just more people to trade. Again, the same aspect. It's a whole nother position that's tradable, where it's not really that tradable in start 1. So, that's with that track record of picking those guys. Yeah, I mean, I like that pivot to a super flex format for sure.
Yeah, I was looking at this. I got through 11 quarterbacks, and that doesn't even include Tom Brady. And then you get Jalen Hurts, who a lot of people project to be a top 5 guy for this year. That's 13. I mean, so that doesn't include maybe if Trevor Lawrence steps up, Trey Lance, the upside factor there. I mean, it's unbelievable that, one quarterback, it really does make the position shoulder shrug to a large degree. Who's going to have that giant breakout 50 touchdown season? But other than that, who's going to run for 1,000 yards? Other than that, it doesn't really matter too much. So I don't know. I don't play in a lot of 1 quarterbacks like startups and things like that. So it does make it a little Lego and Duplo block for me.
Yeah. And we are getting, by the way, we're getting some more content on the website. I believe that the weekly, that the season-long projections are coming out this week. I know that a couple people have them flowing out, but I believe that they're all coming out mid-May, and so that'll be exciting. We've got articles and stuff up there as well. I've got a whole series breaking down winners and losers of the draft. And yeah, so I mean, this is it. Like we're ramping up already, getting close to the season. Like
we're into the red zone. It's going to be the push once we get to July. But just know we're setting the table. I know the rankings, the team players, the player pages, all of that is ramping up. And May and early May is really that month where Footballguys comes alive. There's a lot of content between the end of the season and now. But this is where really, I always call it the fire hose, really starts, and it just hits you in the face, and you can consume, and you'll never be thirsty again. So between, and there's a lot of new stuff going on with how the player comments show and how you can sort and all of that for your different types of drafts. There's also the Dynasty, the Dynasty trade value chart by Dan Hendry has some new gadgets and tools and ways to use it this off season compared to previous seasons. So a lot of new stuff on the site, and making it more mobile friendly and a lot more consumable that, years ago they would look and be like, wow, look at that. because it's just there's been so much redesign over the past 12 to 18 months, and it goes on behind the scenes. I know that was always one of the things when I was a subscriber alone or just getting on staff. It was that I really didn't appreciate so many people that do behind the scenes work where it's like, oh, they're on staff, I never see them write an article. But there's so much that goes on between editing and planning content and all the machinery that gets it to look and present and be published in the fashion in which it does on a well-designed site. So just know that there's heroes that are out there that are working full time that do a lot of these upgrades and maintenance out there for Football Guys, so that you can enjoy it, so that we can produce the content, produce the widgets. I like to say there with podcasting, so you can find it. And we're also, again, presenting new landing pages and things like that for all the podcasts and all the new video content that has just been a point of emphasis over the last 12 months or so. All right. We talked a lot in this episode about dynasty trading, a little bit in rookie drafts, Ezekiel Elliott, Joe Burrow. And at the beginning, we could probably make 10 more rules about rookie drafting, but we shared 2 or 3 of them in 2022. But also, just globally, you can take those with you, put them in your toolbox, and take them to 2023 and beyond as well. They travel. So
I need a Football Guys article. That's a good idea. Like 67 rules to live by in your rookie drafts. Like just go really in depth on rules.
All 67. Exactly. If this, then this. It's going to be like a math equation. A lot of parentheses. I'm thinking parentheses.
Tree diagram going on. It's going to be great.
Yep. And it's rookie drafting season. So dig in and make sure you utilize the clock if you are exploring a trade. Don't rush it. If you got 2 minutes between an errand and everything. And reminder, again, we're about 3 weeks into 3 weeks down to the Dynasty Show becoming its own living, breathing organism. So you want to go to join.footballguys.com/Dynasty Show. And you can find Jordan, myself, and everything you need to make sure you keep subscribing, keep rating and reviewing us, and finding us every single week, whether it's YouTube or on your desired platform for podcasting. I am Chad Parsons. He's Jordan McNamara. Until next time, good luck in your Dynasty leagues.